Hello, everyone, and a very delayed welcome back to the Special Interest Show. We haven't been uploading as much because the demons of Babylon tried to silence us. But we've solved...
Yeah, we did give it a good go. There's a whole, 2 or 3 lost episodes.
Yeah, that have been claimed by the agents of Babylon. But we've solved that problem, probably, we think.
Don't touch wood.
I am touching wood. It scares off the demons.
Exactly.
And because of that, we don't have names this week, as names give demons power.
Demons, right? Yeah.
So
just have no names.
It's Nameless Girl and Nameless Boy. I'm Nameless Girl, and this is my co-host Nameless Boy. Say hello, Nameless Boy.
I'm Nameless Boy. I'm Nameless Boy. And your identity.
Right, have you got the podcast? Not podcast. The PowerPoint up.
Yeah.
Okay, so here is your clue for this episode. Today's episode is going to be about a religious radical who was persecuted by the ruling government, disliked by conservatives of his own faith, and marched into an important trade city on a donkey as a crowd welcomed him. Who am I talking about?
I feel it's not going to be Jesus. That feels like a broad topic.
No. We're not going to do an episode of Jesus.
Just the Jesus episode. I don't know. I thought there were a lot of religious radicals that were disliked by their members of their own faith.
So I was kind of hoping you'd have said Jesus, so I could be like, no, it's actually James Nayler.
Who was that?
He was an early Quaker, and he tried to reenact being Jesus, tried to reenact the Palm Sunday entrance to the city. He also did it naked, though.
Oh!
And I found that out literally 5 minutes before. Like, none of the sources mentioned that he was naked, and then the last one I read just before, like, going to do this episode, it was like, he was also naked.
What source was this?
It was...
What website were you on?
Well, I was actually... the Bristol Radical Reading Group was one of the ones I checked. Quite good. And yeah, no, at the time, apparently it was very common for religious radicals to just get naked.
I mean, you know what? The other person I thought of, even though he didn't fit like any of the other descriptions, was when you first started saying religious radical, was William Blake. Who I love William Blake. And he did famously just hang out in his garden naked. So I think it's just a hallmark of religious radical.
But yeah, so today we're going to be talking about James Nayler and so here's an overview for the episode. Who is this guy? Why is he important? And did he inadvertently save Quakerism? That's kind of going to be
provocative.
Yeah. So firstly,
stop some Quakerism debates in the comments.
Yeah, cause a furious flame war about religion. That never happens on the internet. So who was the guy? He was born in 1618, joined the army. Also, actually, for context, he was alive during the English Civil War between the Parliamentarians and the Royalists. He joined the Parliamentarian army, became a quartermaster, which, for those of you who don't know, basically in charge of supplies.
Okay.
And it's quite a... It's not like high rank in sense of general, but to go from commoner to quartermaster is pretty decent, especially during this time.
Don't they have quartermasters on pirate ships?
Yes. Because...
I thought I said that. Because they need supplies too.
Yeah, they need supplies. It's like a common term for anything like military.
Okay. So please applaud me for knowing that they also have them on pirate ships.
Yes.
They probably learned from some stupid book or something.
Sadly, he was not a pirate. This isn't a pirate episode.
Okay.
So yeah, he was in the army until in 1650, God spoke to him and said, you need to do ministry. You need to spread the word. Didn't say what word he needed to spread. It was just kind of vague, like, you need to go preach, and didn't give him the details. So he left the army. He kind of, like, wandered for 2 years until he found Quakers, and George Fox, who was the founder of Quakerism, in 1652. And he was like, this is my jam. And became very engrossed with it and became a very talented preacher and theologian for the Quakers, becoming one of the people responsible for its early spread. This is a group of missionaries called the Valiant 60, which was a group of men and women.
That's a really badass name. That does sound like a pirate name, though. Doesn't it not sound like a gang of pirates?
No, I think...
The Valiant 60.
This is like a square... You've got like a square peg and you're trying to ram it into a round hole here, okay?
I think these guys were pirates. Ultimately, a pirate. If that sounds like a pirate name.
Yarr, this
Pirates famously naked and ride on donkeys. I'm just saying. You've missed the key part of this, Dylan, already. I can tell.
I'm trying to... I'm just quickly looking through the rest of the PowerPoint to see how I've written it, because I do write like a pirate by accident.
You do. Dylan does do this. It's quite funny reading from his messages, because he misses out, like, conjugations of the verb to be. So it'll be like, no, it's not even that. You don't miss it out. You say I be instead of I am.
Yeah, but I be late to the meeting.
Yeah. So you never say it in speaking. It's always just it's one of those little quirks of grammar. And every time it's just like, oh, Dylan's in pirate mode again. You be coming.
Yeah, my entire master's thesis had to be translated from pirate to English.
It was, I don't know if you know this is another obscure Sims fact, but there's a day on the Sims 4 calendar called Talk Like a Pirate Day. And during that, and one of the things you have to do to get aspiration points for that is talk like a pirate, and there's certain interactions change into pirate speak. So I can't remember. It's all really bizarre things. It's all little pirate slang. Get to know will be I don't know, say hi, my hearties or something. It'll all be like that. And I feel like that is just the mode that Dylan is in any time that he writes academically. It's just pirate language. Every day is talk like a pirate day for you.
Well, it's write like a pirate day for me, because I don't speak, it's just the writing.
Well, yes, no, not talk right like a pirate day.
Also, speaking of The Sims, I had a very awkward interaction on the train because of The Sims.
Oh no, please do tell.
So I was on the train back from Swansea, and I thought I saw you, my good friend. And I initially was like, nah. But then I saw they got out a laptop and started playing The Sims. And I was like, okay, this is probably my friend. So I sat next to this person. I was like, oh, hi, fancy seeing you here. And they were like, oh, hi, how are you? And we ended up talking. We ended up playing The Sims for a good hour on this train. And then we'd made a family, and there was Pedro Pascal in the house. Which also made me think it was you, because I remember you talking about, making Pedro...
It does add on to the... Thinking it was me, I would do that.
Well, he set the house on fire.
Yeah, of course he did.
Because I think he failed cooking. I can't exactly remember actually.
The most common cause of fires in The Sims is cooking fires. It's a real problem.
And then I said to who I thought was you, oh, he's just a baby. He's just a baby. And then the person didn't get it at all, and I realised they had not watched Parks and Rec. And I was like, shit, this isn't...
It can't be Ellen then.
Who the fuck is this? And I had to sit next to a stranger, and I didn't want to because they seemed conversational enough, so I didn't want to give the game away. And I had another half an hour to my stop, and I was like, oh my god, well, fuck. I need an out to this. I really hope we don't have the same stop, because I've got no fucking clue who this person is.
For even more context for the listeners, this isn't the first time that Nameless Girl has mistaken me, a stranger for me, and it has been worse in the past in terms of the fallout. Of the
yes, I think I need to just ignore you if I ever see you in person.
Well, unless I feel like to be fair, I was going to say just wait for me to come and be like, yeah, but that person did do this, which has clearly contributed to this situation. So who did they think you were? They just think you were just coming up to chat to them.
I don't know. I could have been their friend. I could have looked like their friend. They could have been a friendly person. I don't know. They seemed
Wow.
happy. They seem like a happy person though. But also, I'm sorry if person playing the Sims on the train from Swansea a few days ago. Sorry, you're listening. Right, where were we? Valiant
Yeah.
60. Okay, Valiant Quakers.
Yeah, sorry.
Valiant 60. That was a. Oh, that was a. I'm
Good
keeping it in.
section.
I'm not editing that out mainly because I'm
No,
lazy.
it's part of the podcast. This is just what happened.
So yeah, he became one of the Valiant 60, and he also wrote really fervently. This we're going back to James Nayler. This is not The Sims or Pirates. He wrote really fervently, and he built kind of a considerable personal following. I read one source that said during this time, which is sort of the 1650s, 25% of all Quaker writings was done by James.
Oh my god.
He
Wow.
was just like shooting these pamphlets out, and a lot of these.
He's like the Alexander Hamilton of Quaker.
Yes, and this
Thank
is
you. Was that relevant?
yes,
To
because
the comment?
there's the song like how can you
Why
write?
do you write like you're running out of time?
There we go. But yeah, so 25% of all Quaker writings was being done by him, and these also kind of weren't unorthodox. They were kind of in line with the rest of Quakerism. These writings were used to found the basis of Quaker practice all the way to this day. But he gained a considerable personal following.
Right.
A lot of women, a lot of the
Was he
sources...
hot?
We're going to talk about that later.
Oh, okay, we are going to talk about that. Okay.
Okay, so he purported to have like a lot of women around him, but they never talk about like it in a sexual way. It's more in a like...
Okay.
Because he had a wife, and his wife never
Right.
seemed to be bugged by this. Like, there's no... I couldn't find anything about her being, like, distraught at him spending all this time with women. And a lot of these women also had husbands, and I couldn't find any of them being...
Okay.
So, it seems they were just platonic friends, good roommates. Doesn't seem to be...
Yeah. Maybe he had that, like, non-threatening kind of energy that, like, appeals to them. You know? Like,
No,
this guy's a cool guy.
I don't know.
Talk about Quakerism.
I know zero
No,
women.
let's try to speculate, Dylan. Let's speculate.
But just keep in mind that there were women, because this will be important later.
Okay.
This caused tensions with George Fox. Not the women part, just the considerable following. He was becoming... James was becoming really popular, and there was rumours that George was getting jealous of him.
Oh.
Also around this time, apparently James Nayler started acting a bit culty. Like, started acting as either a messiah or like a biblical prophet and asking his followers to refer to him as such, which caused some tensions.
Yeah.
But he never fell out with George Fox. This jealousy seemed to be one way.
Okay.
And I found this really nice quote where George visited James in jail because Quakers got arrested just for being Quakers at this time.
Yeah.
And George was like, I'm upset with you. This isn't okay. And James tried to like heal the bridge between them by some sources say by trying to kiss his feet or trying to kiss his cheeks. And George Fox reportedly said, "No, I shall receive no sham kisses from you." And I just I just love that phrase.
Brutal.
I shall receive no sham kisses from you. Like, it's Valentine's Day soon, people. Like, remember that phrase.
He's like, I will receive sincere kisses, but you don't mean this, so this isn't going to happen until you actually mean it. Like,
there's no sham kisses in this household. So this kind of, I guess, lays the background of, we have James Nayler, this rising star in Quakerism, which is, I should have given this context earlier actually. It was a new sect of Christianity that had sprouted up in England during the English Civil War. It was very anti-hierarchical. It preached equality with women, which was like very scandalous.
yeah.
And actually a lot of the Valiant 60 were women themselves. So you had women preaching, women writing, women in positions of, I don't want to say power, because Quakerism doesn't really have a hierarchy, but positions of respect, I guess.
Respect and influence.
So it was quite harshly repressed throughout England, especially after the Civil War had ended and Cromwell took power. He was not a fan of them. And among this, you have this rising star of James Nayler. He's doing all these writings. He has this huge personal following and is maybe letting it get a bit to his head by kind of calling himself a messiah or a prophet. And all this culminates into the Bristol incident, where he reenacted Jesus' entering of Jerusalem on Palm Sunday. He did this on Palm Sunday, where he rode into Bristol naked on a donkey and had all his women followers proclaim him as he was walking through the city, shouting, "Holy, holy, holy." They were all immediately arrested for heresy, just like right away. And interestingly enough, they were tried by Parliament, because this is after the Civil War had concluded, and there wasn't any laws they brought up against it. They weren't like, oh, this breached the Ordnance Act of 1582 or whatever. They were just like, this is fucking heresy, mate. Let's just fucking kill him. And that's basically what the whole trial was. And initially he was going to be executed, but he had his sentence instead changed to being forced to ride through Bristol, but backwards, getting whipped, then being put in the stocks, and then having his tongue branded, and then like a B branded on his forehead for blasphemer, and then thrown into jail.
What? They like literally made him. They were like, let's just reverse this, and then add some torture in there.
Yeah.
To make up for this, they made him go back. That's insane. They made him go backwards.
Yeah,
isn't this making just more of a? Are you not going to make a martyr out of him then by doing that? Do they not think that would like only increase his following?
Well,
if you're seeing a guy being publicly like tortured.
No, because it didn't increase. Because a lot of people were really outraged with this Bristol thing, and it caused a wider backlash against Quakerism as a whole. Because people are like, that's those weirdos who ride into Bristol naked. Let's lynch them.
Right. Yeah.
So it didn't really create a martyr out of him, or sort of increase his popularity. He then served a few years in jail. He was then let out, I believe, after the rest. No. It was still during Cromwell's time. He was let out of jail. I couldn't find a source that said explicitly why. I think just it was during this time. Sentences were kind of like guidelines, and Quakers got let out of prison quite a lot because they were quite nice. And he made up with George Fox, who forgave him. He was like, "You're an idiot, but I guess we have to forgive. So I'm letting you back into the Quakers, but don't do that again, please."
Let's not repeat that.
And then he got stabbed while traveling to a friend's.
Oh.
And died.
By who?
Just a guy. It was just like a mugging. It wasn't like an assassination or like state violence.
Was it a highwayman or something?
Yeah.
Or a pirate?
It was on the land, so I don't think it was a pirate. It was like in
I'm sure. Well, pirates can go on land still.
I think. So. What's the county that Bath is in?
Somerset.
Somerset. I think he was killed in Somerset. I think.
Well, yeah. Did he live around there? Because if he was going into Bristol.
Yeah. Well, I think he was visiting his wife, got stabbed, visited a nearby Quaker doctor, and then like died the next day.
Oh, the Quaker doctor must have been very good then. No, more Quaker doctors.
I mean, it's annoying that again the sources just refer to him as Quaker doctor, and I'm like, don't doctors have to swear an oath? You know, the Hippocratic oath? Like,
Hippocratic oath.
You know, like, what was this guy's deal? But alas, I couldn't find information about it in time. There's then one last thing I do want to, like, talk about before we get on to the last part, and that's, was what I just told you Anglican propaganda?
Oh, okay. Were you the unreliable narrator all along?
So a lot of the sources I read just kind of repeated what I just said. However, I found a few Quaker sources that kind of pushed a different narrative. Also, this I guess is where we talk about if he's hot or not. So if you scroll back, you see the first picture I put of him.
Yeah, he looks really like Jesus in that.
Yeah, and you can see he's got
even with the little B on his head.
Yeah, I've seen some edits of this photo that turn it into a J to like really emphasize that.
Not TikTok edits.
No. Just like edits online.
Oh.
I don't have TikTok, but there probably is on TikTok.
What, changing into a yeah, because that picture looks really like that famous one of Jesus, where like the two sides of his face are slightly different.
Yeah, and that picture is kind of what was not published in the newspapers because I didn't really exist. But like, this is the popular depiction of James Nayler at this time and of this whole incident. It's like, look, he's dressing as Christ. He's a blasphemer, and they would say that he had. This is then going back to the women. There were two prevailing kind of narratives around them. One of them was that he, and this one didn't seem to gain traction, kind of like just dropped dead in the water, is that like he was either seducing them or, luring women away. But the more popular one was kind of the reverse, is that this was a good, honest man whose mind had been warped by all these women around him. And this is why we shouldn't let women, like, have any power, because they will, like, make you ride into Bristol naked.
What a stretch to blame those women for that.
And that brings us back to, there's this second image I found of him that seems to be a lot less common, but also seems to be unbiased depiction. And I'm gonna say he doesn't look like a looker.
No, he looks a bit...
He doesn't have a chin.
Yeah, he's got a very weird chin.
He looks like...
a very big hat, a bit too big a hat.
He looks like, those memes where it's like the Chad versus the incel. He looks like the incel from those.
Incel James Nayler.
Which, so I don't think he was hot. I don't think he was. I don't think there was anything going on with him and these women. I think he was just great roommates with them all. So going back to the Anglican propaganda angle, so he was accused of heresy, accused of pretending to be the next Christ or reincarnation of Christ. And one of the things indicted against him is apparently these women would call him the Prince of Light.
Oh.
Feels very like laughy, to be honest. Like, hey guys, my name isn't James. Call me Prince of Light. However, I was reading some Quaker point of views that are saying that actually this is because, like, he didn't try to call himself the next Jesus. Instead, his actions got misinterpreted because the prosecution didn't understand Quaker theology. So, here is like a 5-minute tangent. Please don't fall asleep on Quaker theology, particularly during the 1650s. So, obviously the English Civil War had happened. The Church of England had abolished itself, and there was kind of anarchy running around. A lot of people thought this was the end of days, and a lot of Christians think that when the end of days happen, Jesus will return. So, just throughout the country, there was this big feeling of Christ is going to be coming. And Quakers argued that he had already come back, but spiritually, and that all of us had a bit of Christ in us, and that because we all had that spark of the divine, we should all be equals. That was a big element of Quaker theology at this time, that Jesus had returned spiritually. So, some people say that what James Nayler was trying to do is try to demonstrate through this reenactment of Palm Sunday that Christ had returned in spirit to all of us, and tried to use it as like a preaching event.
Oh, like a kind of metaphorical preaching thing,
Yeah, because in the court when he was questioned, he never referred to himself as Jesus, and he refused. He said, "No, I'm not Christ, but I have Christ in me, as we all do." So it seems that, Anglican propaganda has kind of misinterpreted this event and casted him as this kind of crazy religious radical who tried to turn Quakerism into a cult. And
just kind of skewed it,
when I did my degree at uni, that's kind of how I was taught about James Nayler, as like the kind of Wario to George Fox's Mario, this like evil other who was radical and crazy.
The Quaker Antichrist.
Yeah. However, the aftermath of the whole Bristol thing, I think may have actually inadvertently saved Quakerism. So, again, as I mentioned earlier, during this time, Church of England accidentally abolished itself. So there was kind of religious anarchy in England at this time. And you got loads and loads and loads of new sects springing up all the time. You had the Ranters, the Adamites, the Levanites, the Shakers, and obviously the Quakers. Now, today, none of those other groups really exist except for the Quakers.
Quakers, yeah.
And also, whenever I read about evangelical movements in America, I think you'll agree with this too, like with things like Christian Science or whatever, they kind of go a bit crazy sometimes with their leader, might get a bit culty.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen with Quakerism. It managed to be cohesive and not drink the Kool-Aid and last up until modern day. And I think this is directly because of the reforms George Fox made to prevent, in his mind, another James Nayler doing a Bristol incident.
Oh, interesting.
So he made the meetings, which is what we Quakers like refer to as like religious get together. Like we have a meeting, that is our prayer. He made them more organised. He set up the yearly meetings, the monthly meetings, the area meetings. And also made it possible for meetings to disavow members. So they could easily go, this crazy guy is not associated with us, we disavow. No idea who you're talking about.
To kind of protect the brand image a bit better.
Yeah.
You don't just have...
And this is still used to... Like, this disavow mechanism is still, like, in place today. At a meeting near me, it was founded that one of the members was engaged in the international black market for weapons dealing.
What?
Yeah, and so he was disavowed because... weapons dealing? Yeah, it was a surprise to a lot of us. They were disavowed very quickly because there's the whole pacifism thing of Quakerism.
Yeah. Taking a massive part of Quakerism.
You know, so that mechanism's still there today. So Quakerism, even though it is in some ways anarchic. Yep, anarchic in its organisation. You know, there is no formal clergy, there is no formal hierarchy. These reforms allowed it to have enough organisation that it doesn't disperse into just nothingness. Because, you know, there have been other anti-clerical sects of Christianity, but usually they end up being too anti-hierarchical for their own good, and they kind of just dissolve into nothing. There's no central authority, so it kind of just turns into lots of little cults. But also, this organisation also allows it to disavow any cult members or any people trying to seize power, like theological power within Quakerism. So I think that his Bristol incident kind of helped Quakerism last all the way until today.
Yeah, that is an interesting way of thinking about it, isn't it? That kind of, because that he created the need for a kind of clamp down a little bit more on like identity formation. Because you see this in like all religions, right? And all aspects. It was a big part of early Christianity, and like the Christianity we see today, obviously in various denominations, was response to heresy. And like, well, this person's saying something we disagree with. What are we going to say? Oh, let's form a council and like agree on the thing, and then this guy's now not part of us. It's all like group formation, isn't it? And like you say, if you have it too amorphous, too like vague, of like, well, you can think what you want and you can do what you want, you can say what you want, like you run into a lot of issues. Either it ruins the whole brand identity for everyone else, and everyone thinks that all Quakers are like that, or it's like, well, what even is the point of calling yourselves Quakers if everyone believes in different things, kind of thing, right?
Yeah. So I'm glad you understood what I was talking about. I haven't been just yapping nonsense. But yeah, and it was interesting researching this because I was expecting James Nayler to be more crazy. Because again, when I was in uni, I was kind of taught he was this crazy figure, and I was quite surprised to kind of find that was, you know, mostly like Anglican misinformation.
Yeah.
And, you know, Quakers broadly were upset with him for this incident because they viewed it rightly as bad optics.
Yeah.
Because it also, as I mentioned, it did kind of reaffirm anti-Quaker hatred, and kind of it did taint their brand. But I couldn't see the same kind of theological disagreements within the Quaker writings as compared to the prosecution. And as I mentioned earlier, he after he went out of jail, he still kept on writing, and nothing he wrote really went against Quaker canon, to the extent there is a Quaker canon.
He wasn't actually that. Yeah, it's quite interesting that he wasn't that radical. So it was more the kind of scandalous like act of him going into Bristol like that on the donkey.
Yeah.
But kind of, and it was less about him doing like theologically being seen as incorrect from the Quakers' perspective, and more of like, that's a big like scandal you've just caused for no reason, and now everyone hates us and you're in jail and everyone thinks all Quakers think that you're Christ, and are blasphemous, and especially I guess it probably plays a part of it, of how tumultuous the kind of religious background was. Like you were saying, you know, that the Church of England had like deleted itself at this point.
Yes.
So, like, everyone's already in a bit of panic of like, well, what's happening? Like, you know, who's correcting this? Is this the end of the world? Is Jesus coming back? And so you're kind of primed to like be quite defensive about things that are being perceived as like, you kind of was kind of looking for like someone to blame on this, right? Like,
yeah,
well, this guy must be. Oh, he's the heretic. It's his fault. Like,
actually, interestingly, the reason why he wasn't killed was Oliver Cromwell didn't want to set a precedent for executing, quote, men of God.
oh,
So I think that fits in that, like, because Oliver Cromwell was himself a religious radical, a Puritan.
Yeah.
Which I was going to say wasn't affiliated with the Church of England, but yeah, because the Church of England had you know, deleted itself. Like,
Yeah.
Also, I guess I should clear up for context. I should have said this earlier. During the English Civil War, both sides tried to court Scotland, particularly Scotland's army, because it had the most professional and well-equipped army on like the whole island. And Scotland was Presbyterian at the time, so they were like, "Hey, we'll help whoever's Presbyterian." The Royalists were very Catholic leaning, so they were kind of out of the race. And the Church of England was like, "Okay, right." Or the parliamentarians were like, "Okay, right, let's abolish the Church of England and then make a new church that's Presbyterian, and we'll get the Scottish army on board." They did the first part very quickly, and then they could not agree on the second part, so there just was no Church of England for a few decades, and that caused all sorts of religious anarchy during this time period.
Deleted itself.
Yeah.
An easy way of saying it.
Whenever I hear deleted, I just think of suicide now because of like TikTok.
What, using it as like a way of getting around the censors?
Yeah, like they'll say unalive or deleted or
Unalive. The Church of England unalived itself.
but it came back. It got better. Don't worry. There's still a Church of England.
Just like Jesus.
Yeah. So that has been the story of James Nayler, the not so crazy Quaker. I hope everybody has enjoyed listening to this. I have been Nameless Girl. This has been my co-host, Nameless Boy.
Nameless Boy.
See you next time.
Where I talk about Sims 4 Pirates.